Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name's Soleil and I garden in Zone 5B in mid-Michigan, and I'm going to take you around my garden for a tour today. It's gotten really nice out and I think we're in for a warm spell for a while. We may even be past our last frost date. So let's take a look at what's going on in the garden. Well, let's start by taking a look at the fountain garden, which is looking rather lovely right now. We almost have an azalea in bloom over here, which is going to be beautiful. And that Japanese maple is really starting to put on its leaves. It's a beautiful bloodgood, and it mirrors the same color that we have in the neighbor's Japanese maple that is way back behind it. We also have the gorgeous Mugo pine that is beginning to fill in that space, and we have some superstar spirea on either side of this pathway, and the superstar spirea are really starting to fill in as well. We're also getting some beautiful blooms with tulips. Aren't those gorgeous? I do love the color of the new growth on these superstar spireas. In this garden bed over here, we have some new growth coming up just about everywhere. We have a wonderful tulip that's growing. Back behind that, the deutzia bush has buds all over it. All of these, we have plenty of them. Right up front, along the edge, are salvia. We have the crystal blue, and we have the azure snow varieties, and they're getting ready to put on their full growth that's going to push out some buds soon. And all of the burgundy, this is chocolate chip ajuga, and it has wonderful purple blue flowers that are getting ready to burst open soon. One of the recent changes that I made in this garden bed was to this pulsatilla, and this is also called pasque flower. And it's a beautiful light purple. It's an alpine variety, and it was kind of spotted throughout this bed, so I pulled it all together and tucked it around this rock, and I think it really is a nice change, don't you? We have a couple incredible hydrangeas behind that with some geraniums. And then eventually I'm going to have to come through and move these daffodils, but I'm going to wait until after they're done blooming. But as you can see, when I planted the incredible hydrangea, it was a little close to those daffodils, but I didn't realize it because they were done blooming. All of the primroses over here continue to grow on and bloom. Aren't they beautiful? Just so, so pretty. What a lovely spring bouquet. Well, let me take you down into the Protege garden now, which is looking great. I'm getting ready to do some pots over here. I actually am seeing quite a few blooms now on the strawberry plants. Those dark red blooms. Isn't that exciting? Unfortunately, the groundhog did come through and eat my kale. But I have some beautiful lettuce over here that I protected with cages, and it is doing really well. And these irises we planted last year are coming along great. The Autumn Jubilee 9-bark has its beautiful colors on, and we're starting to get some blooms on the service berries over here. Aren't those beautiful? And these pretty white blooms will turn into edible flowers, and they're pretty tasty. The Virginia is continuing to bloom as well in this garden bed. And it's amazing, since we got this heat today, I'm starting to see some of the buds of the irises. Lots of green onions doing well over here, and we have some beets that are just starting to grow that I seeded directly into the ground. And then we also have some snap peas, which look great. The sedum at this end of the garden bed is definitely bushing out, and it looks amazing. I just love it when it's so compact and it's tightly budded. Now, I haven't mulched the whole backyard, but we did get this garden bed mulched right here, and I think it looks amazing, so much better. We do have a few daffodils that are still in bloom in here, but those are about to go over. And we have the weigela, which is the dark horse weigela that is putting on its deep, dark burgundy foliage. It's almost black even. And then we have a pink mink clematis over here. We have some nepeta and some foxglove all throughout this garden bed, which I think will look beautiful. And some panicle hydrangeas in the back. All the way in the back you can see we have some peonies back there. We have another deutzia as well, which has buds all over it, which I'm looking forward to seeing bloom. Boy, have the phlox filled in to this garden bed right here by the shed, haven't they? They're these beautiful green mounds that just look like such spring freshness. We're starting to see some of the hostas poke through the ground much stronger now that we're beginning to get some warm weather. These are the Patriot hostas that are green and white. And next to that is ajuga. This is the burgundy glow ajuga, which is absolutely stunning. The foliage is beautiful and so are the flowers. Then we have a boom chocolata geranium over here and a panicle hydrangea. We have the gorgeous 9-bark right here. This is the Amber Jubilee again. It's nice to repeat some things throughout the garden so you have some consistency in your garden beds. And you can see the flowers are all done on this plum tree, but look at the beautiful foliage on it. The leaves are really starting to come out. And that's the thundercloud plum tree. So we have some small shrubs that we planted back here. We have a weigela that's variegated, and we have a hydrangea back there. And the 2 hellebores that we planted in here have taken really well to their new home. I think they look great. And just look at this row of lungwort. Isn't it amazing? This has a very light blue flower on it. I think this variety might be Twinkle Toes. And I've had it for years. And this is the one that we divided just the other day. So you can see how it's a little bit droopy, and it was much more droopy earlier today when the sun was out. But it will be absolutely fine for the entire garden year. Definitely has adapted to its new space very well. Now back here we have lots of Japanese ferns that are just starting to come up, and they're very hard to see because they're almost the same color as the ground. But lots of bleeding hearts coming up in the woodland garden right now. And the penny pink hellebore is actually putting out a new bloom. Look at that bud opening up right there. Isn't that beautiful? Now I replaced the arborvitae that was eaten by the rabbits with this hydrangea. This is one of the Bar Harbor Seaside Serenade hydrangeas, and it is one of the arborescens varieties, so similar to an Annabelle hydrangea. And other hellebores we planted recently look great. They also seem very happy. The spot-on pulmonaria is blooming. We have new growth coming out on this Scarlet O'Hara pieris. And the blooms on the vinca over here is looking gorgeous. And I think we're going to get some bloom spikes on these foxgloves. I can tell they're just starting to push up. So I don't think they're going to get entirely smothered by the vinca. And we have some gorgeous blooms from the Brunnera over here. Just those pretty periwinkle blue blooms, and lots of hostas coming up, you guys. It's really starting to burst through. The witch hazel leaves are just starting to open, and aren't they beautiful? Look at that. They're just like velvet. And similar in tone to that is the oak leaf hydrangea leaf. Very silvery white, and then on the inside a limey green. So much to see in the woodland garden right now. I mean, it really has changed since the last time that we looked at it. We'll come out front here so you can see all of the blooms together. We've got lots of tulips and daffodils. And I think we're getting kind of to the end of the daffodils. I think in a few days they're going to start to peter out a little bit. But it's been nice to have ones that have a little bit of different bloom time, right? So that it can kind of extend the daffodil season. And the tiarellas that are along this border right here look great. They're really starting to fill in. And so are the heucheras. You can really start to see how things are going to be covering the soil soon. Here we have that lovely combination of the pretty and pink lungwort with the Dutch Master daffodil. And over here, a beautiful Trillium grandiflorium right next to a maidenhair fern that's just starting to open. You can see we have some Dicentra bleeding heart next to this dogwood, which I think is going to bloom this year. I'm really excited about that. Then we have some blooms on a Brunnera in this garden bed, and foxglove that are really starting to push. And then these gorgeous tulips, the Darwin hybrid variety with the long, long stems. And between that, the heaven sent ferny foliage. We have lots more tulips back here in this garden bed, also backed by the fern leaf foliage of the bleeding heart. And a little bit more Brunnera, the Queen of Hearts, which I divided and put the other half over here on the bench, which I think looks beautiful. Then we have some Muckgenia right here that is looking really healthy. I think I found a good spot for it. Now I also planted some ferns in the way back. On the other side of the path, you can see we have 3 ferns back there. We planted the lungwort, and there's some Brunnera that's growing. So lots of little blooms for the woodland garden back there right now. I also took some of the Hakone clover that I divided recently and used that back there. So hopefully the deer don't pull that out. You can tell on this foxglove what I'm talking about in terms of them really starting to push up shoots in the middle and bloom stalks. And super excited to tell you guys that I'm getting blooms now on my redbud. This is the very first year that it has bloomed for me, and it's just starting to open. So I think it will be a little bit showier in the next couple of days, but nevertheless, I'm excited to show you guys how that has done. Again, I grew that from just a teeny stick that was a volunteer seedling in my garden from the neighbor's yard. They self-seed pretty readily. You can see this garden bed. We have all of the hostas in the front that line this garden bed coming up, and that's the golden tiara hosta. All the daffodils are just about done in this garden bed. We have a couple of blooms that might still open up, but other than that, we're going to start seeing all of the heucheras and the penstemon and the catchfly in this garden bed open up. We have some April night salvia, and believe it or not, it has buds on it. I guess if it's called April night, it should be blooming close to April, right? Maybe it would have bloomed sooner if we had better weather. It's so nice to look back from this perspective at this garden. I just love the way that it looks. Makes me happy, and very, very excited to tell you that the goat's beard plant that we planted and transplanted last year is doing good. It's looking really nice right here. This is the Chantilly lace variety from Proven Winners, and then back behind it we have the espalier apple tree, and it has buds on it, you guys. Look at these beautiful flowers that are gonna open, and hopefully we'll get some apples that the groundhog can't get to this year. If anybody has any tips and tricks for protecting apples from groundhogs, like do you put a bag over them or something like that? I'm gonna have to do some research. And the mahogany monster heucheras are big. We've got the autumn frost hostas all along the front here that are beginning to pop up. Definitely feeling much more like spring these days. And just look at all of the color in the long border. Isn't that amazing? Everything changes so quickly this time of year. The color on this tulip is like a gorgeous sunset. So, so pretty. We have some of the panicle hydrangeas throughout this garden bed that are just starting to leaf out. They kind of seem a little bit frozen in time, but they're getting there. And all of the barberries have put on most of their leaves at this point, and this one is a beautiful burgundy purple. Isn't that lovely? I think that one's called Concord, like the grape. We have some daisies and a weigela and some sedum. Another barberry just looking really stunning. Now these daffodils, the apricot world, have really held their own, but I think they're at the end of their lifespan. So probably in the next day or two, I'm gonna have to come through and deadhead all of those. But they have been really great. I love them. We planted this fireside 9 bark back here last year. But what we did recently is I pulled out the false mophead cypress from right here that didn't do very well because of the groundhog. And I planted the quickfire hydrangea in its place. So there's a little bit more spacing going on here now, which is fine. I think they'll be happy with the extra space. Down here we have a beautiful spirea that is really low mounding type, but just a very bright color. In fact, it's almost got a little bit of orange on the edges, just like these limoncello barberries. And at the base of this viburnum, we have that samurai lungwort, or the pulmonaria. Isn't that beautiful? I just love the color of the foliage on that, and the blooms are gorgeous. So I hope this one continues to spread under here. I may have to divide it more this fall, just to make sure we have plenty of coverage under this viburnum. And this viburnum is smothered in buds. And I wasn't sure if it was going to make it through the freeze, but I think it has made it because I'm starting to see a little bit of white around the edges. And they seem to be kind of poofing out a little bit. So they look like they may open soon. I can't wait. Cannot wait. We have a beautiful double play doozy red spirea there with some gorgeous heucheras down at the base, putting in all sorts of different colors of red and orange and green and burgundy and caramel. And you can see I've trimmed my bushes here, so the false mophead cypress look a little bit more trimmed, but they will put out that lacy foliage again for us as they grow on during the year. This will just help to maintain their size. We have some muscari growing at the base of the fountain over here, and some more heucheras. And then we have a creeping phlox that is getting ready to bloom as well. This one has a beautiful blue. And over here, I took out the arborvitae that was the round shrub, and I dug that out. I made quick work of it with the root slayer shovel, and I replaced it with the scallywag holly that we took from the front garden bed, and this one had been nibbled on by the deer, so I needed to get it in a more protected space. So hopefully it will be happy here, but obviously that creates a lot more open space in this area. Now my can-do hydrangea, which is next to it, looks like I'm going to get some actual growth out of some of the old wood. So I'm looking forward to seeing if we get any blooms from the old wood this year or not. With plenty of new growth down at the base, but all of that cold weather was not making it happy for sure. We have the Sicilian honey, which is it's an allium, and it has these bell-shaped flowers, and I can see the buds on it sticking up, so I'm looking forward to that blooming because it's very unique. And we have some clematis that I think is going to do much better this year. Last year was really its first full year in the ground, so this year it should push some blooms for us. Now this is a double play? No, it is a sonic bloom weigela. And you can see a lot of it does not look like it's coming back, so I'm going to need to do a little trimming on this just to ensure that it grows to a good shape. But parts of it are alive enough so that I will leave it there to grow on. We have this beautiful Japanese maple putting on some new growth. More deutzia shrubs back here that are going to bloom soon. Lots of sweet woodruff throughout this garden bed that is getting ready to bloom as well. And I tell you, there just keeps being wonderful scents throughout the garden this time of year. Here's the forsythia that is just about done blooming. I will have to do a little trimming on this after I'm done. I might take a cutting of that to be able to put in the way back. As an example, I have taken cuttings of my hydrangeas when I trim them, and then I stick them in the ground over here by my compost bin, and you can see most of them have taken and have the new growth on them, so I think those are going to be some nice new shrubs that I can work with. And lots of growth on this clematis. It's almost 3/4 of the way up that trellis already, and it's only May. And look at the beautiful glowing foliage on that autumn frost hosta. We have 3 of those down there. That's going to be beautiful. The burning bush is just starting to put out its growth still. It's really slow. It definitely likes the warmer weather. And this snowball bush definitely has some blooms on it still. I wasn't sure if we would lose these either in the freezes that we had, but I think it's good to go. So I'm going to be looking for those soon as well. We're getting some of the final blooms on this azalea right here, and it's pushing its new growth. We have a beautiful hosta right here in between the ice bog rosemary. And just look at those beautiful little pink flowers on the ice bog rosemary. Isn't that gorgeous? I love it. And we have some buds on this azalea back behind it. Didn't think we would get any this year because the deer pretty much ate the top off of it. They really kind of decimated this azalea right here as well, but I do see a few buds that are left on it. And then back behind you'll see all of the giant fiddleheads of the royal fern that will soon completely fill this area. I don't know if you guys are getting a very good view of my crabapple here, but it is getting ready to bloom. They look like little white balloons coming from smaller pink ones right now, and it is so pretty. And it has been waiting to bloom for several days with buds on it, and it is just smothered in them this year, you guys. Oh, it's so pretty. I love it. So in this garden bed, our planters are doing well. They came through the freezes just fine. So I expect that now they're going to be much happier and they're going to grow on. And we have some May night salvia in this garden bed, so those shouldn't be far behind the April night salvia. And all of the thalia daffodils in this garden bed are still blooming. And they last quite a long time. You can see we have some of the mum foliage also coming up through the mulch, and we have some purple cone flowers that are planted in here. The roses that are in here are looking really good as well. And the tiny wine nine barks are just starting to leaf out, put on some color. And another crabapple here, this is the Louisa crabapple, that is the weeping crabapple, is just starting to bloom. And my husband thought at first that they were berries on it because they start out this beautiful deep dark red pink color, and then they open up to this beautiful light pink bloom and almost white. Oh, it smells so good, you guys. What a sweet, sweet scent of spring. How beautiful. And then beneath it, contributing to the color, is this gorgeous double play doozy spirea, which is the red variety also. And it's got some peonies that are growing up next to it. And then we have some of that Concord barberry on either side. And some more peonies up front here. So these are the Gara that did not come back for me right here. I don't see any new growth on them. Maybe it'll change, maybe I'll see, well, maybe I do see some, I don't know. Is that Gara or is it peony? I guess we'll find out soon enough. At any rate, this bed down here is doing fantastic. We've got lots of good growth on this ajuga that's right here. This is the black scallop variety. And wow, that's starting to provide some coverage. So I expect we'll get a good bloom on this year. That will be a beautiful show. And the daffodils are doing a great job right now at continuing to bloom in this bed. I've got a lot of new growth on the juniper. It's looking like it put on, 6 to 12 inches of growth in height. And all of the little buds on these blue muffin viburnums look like they also made it through the frost and freeze. And we have sprayed with liquid fence, so hopefully they will also be safe from the deer. But yeah, I'm loving how this bed has come together over the last couple of years. Let's look at the sun garden bed. Okay, so this sun garden bed and these beautiful balls of boxwood are starting to put out their new growth. And with the fresh mulch, this garden bed really looks beautiful right now. And those barberries are definitely a shining piece of color until some of the other plants begin to show up as well. Now remember those allium that I was showing you? Boy, are they close to blooming. Probably next week when I do the garden tour, they will be blooming. But isn't that going to be pretty, just along this pathway to have those blooms? I mean, the foliage is beautiful enough to me, but then you add the blooms to it. And we have some under the oak leaf hydrangea as well. And I just love the contrast between that bright orange of the barberry and the silvery white foliage on the oak leaf hydrangea. Such a great contrast. And then at the base, that weighty foliage of the blue-green with the allium. We have some veronica up here that's going to bloom blue. And then some of the veronica that is along here will bloom a light blue, almost lavender color. And all of the alliums that you see that are purple sensation are starting to put on their buds. So those are getting close to blooming as well. I have a random tulip that's been planted by a squirrel in there. But yeah, these are looking pretty good in this garden bed. I do see a dandelion back in there. I'm gonna have to gotta get in there. And then we have this viburnum right here, which is a really low growing one, and that one looks great too. I'm not seeing any buds on it yet, but this one is supposed to kind of bloom throughout the summer. So we'll see when that one starts to set its buds. Hopefully we'll get some this year. We didn't get much last year. It was just planted last year, so sometimes it takes a little bit of time before your plants will bloom for you. So just keep that in mind. A lot of people are like, why isn't my plant blooming? And it's like, oh, well, you just planted it. It needs to set its roots down and, you know, really get itself established before it will be ready to put on a show for you. So be a little bit patient. I know it's hard. We have some pretty variegated sedum in this front garden bed, and we're just starting to get some of the bloom buds to open up on this azalea here. You can see that lamium that I'm letting grow in is just taking over really fast. It's a great ground cover, it really is. That's that same orchid frost that I have in the backyard. And then we have some foxglove down here. I'm thinking about moving these 2 sky pencil hollies. I think they need more sun than they're getting right here, and I have an idea about where I'm going to transplant them to. So something for the future to think about and get excited about. These are spireas. These are called pink sparkler spireas, and they have pretty light pink blooms on them, but they also just have really pretty round leaves. And the hostas are just starting to really peek through this garden bed. We also have some monarda on the corner around the gutter. I planted that last year, so hopefully that one will start to spread. Lots more green growth in here. We have some more of the bleeding hearts in this garden bed as well. You can see all the different types of foliage now really well of the hellebores. And here we have another maidenhair fern that is beginning to grow and unwind. They do grow in such funny shapes, little squiggles. We have another pink sparkler spirea down here, and another sky pencil holly, which is a little bit happier on this side because it gets a little bit more sun. And then we have our fothergillas, and you can see those buds are also starting to begin to show all over, starting to get a little bigger. So I think those will probably bloom within this next week. And another thing that's getting ready to bloom is this euphorbia. Isn't that pretty? I love the color of it. It's so important to have some contrasting colors in your garden beds. We have another weigela here with its very dark foliage. You almost can't see it against the brown mulch, but it's there. And soon we're going to get some foliage on these low-grow sumacs that look kind of like sticks right now, but they're going to fill in and they're going to look really beautiful. We have another orange rocket barberry right here. And this is the other opening day viburnum that we have that's got buds on it as well. Planted this one last year, so really happy with its spot in the garden, clearly, because it's already putting on blooms. I think it's got a little bit more protection in this space just because it's between the 2 houses. And over here we have the garden bed that we planted up with some sun-loving annuals. We have the lobelia that hopefully will begin to trail over the edge, and it did make it through the frost and freezes. It doesn't look super amazing, but I do want to come out here and cut it back so that it can kind of bush out a little bit. And our ranunculus also look like they've done quite well. And I am seeing some new growth on this rosemary, so I think we're good to go. And then the bird house, or bird feeder, I can't talk today, you guys. The bird bath area looks so pretty right now, doesn't it? We've got that Hakona Chloe grass going over back there, which is starting to light up. There's some over here on this side as well. You can't see it quite as well yet. But we've got all of the little hostas growing. Those are the golden tiara kind. And you can just kind of see the black lace elderberry that is peeking out around the sides of it. So I'm really hoping that's going to put on some height this year so that we can get it up and above this bird bath so that, you know, we have that extra height here. And finally we have this spirea, the fire gold. Isn't that beautiful? And it's not blooming yet, but I see buds all over it still. So this one also made it all the way through the frost and freeze. Now that might be a little repetitive for me to keep saying, but as gardeners you probably know how important it is that things make it through those times. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video today and walking about the garden with me and seeing all of the things that have begun to grow again after we've been through such a cold spring. I hope your garden is doing well, and I hope you're beginning to get out there as well. Thank you so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.